Hey, this is Captain Chris Myers of Central Florida Sight Fishing Charters. If you've watched some of my other videos and maybe you've figured out a couple things you'd like to improve or a couple bad fly casting habits that you have right now, this video is going to show you how I recommend you retrain your hand, arm, and your brain to do new and improved fly casting habits instead of your old bad habits. One of the easiest ways to do that is with no rod at all, or by just using a piece of the rod. The benefit of this is you could do it anytime, anywhere, in the house, at work, while you're walking around. You don't need to have a lot of room. You don't need to have fly line up in the air. You don't even need to have a piece of a rod, but if you'd rather just use a piece of the rod when you're at home, that's fine as well. Still, you can do this all inside. And what we need to do is retrain the muscle memory pass in our brain to tell our hand this is what feels good. So right now, the two main things that I see that people often need to retrain are making too short of a stroke, so they come back, they stop here, and they finish the stroke using the wrist. Now I can see I have a big giant gap here that I created, so it looks like a T instead of this, which should go almost straight up my rod, the rod pointing up into the air. So we never want to end up our cast like this ever. The other one is holding everything still and just making the entire cast with our wrist. So this is okay if I'm only casting 20, 25 feet. If I want to get out to 50 feet in one or two strokes, the only way I'm going to do that is to make a long stroke with my hand well beyond my body. But even for my shorter casts, my hand is coming way back here in a straight line, and my wrist is remaining relatively firm at the end. You're never going to see this gap at the end of my cast. So now I can practice all this stuff with or without a rod. This takes very little room. Just using my hand, I don't need any room at all. I could do this sitting down if I wanted to. So now I'm retraining my hand to come past my shoulder all the way back here. Retraining my wrist not to be bending back and forth. And if you try to do this stuff while you have a full rod and line up in the air, it often becomes very frustrating because at first it's not working and your brain says, this does not feel right. This is not the way I've been doing it. I don't want to do it that way. Here, all you're focusing on is your muscle memory of how far you're going to move, keeping the wrist firm, and the other thing we can add on is our speed up and stop at the end. So this is our straight line path with a nice long stroke. Now if we start adding in our speed up and stop, so our proper acceleration to a sudden stop, we can practice that as well. So that's three easy things to practice without ever having to have any room or be outside. A couple more you can add in there. Once you learn those, wherever our reel goes, our left hand should follow. A lot of people end up on the back cast with their hands way out here. And when you're trying to watch your line and improve your loop and remember all those other things we just talked about, it's easy to forget this. And when you try to remember to keep the hand by the reel, then you forget some of the other stuff. These are things that we want to learn when we don't even have to worry about what our line's doing. So now I can follow my reel with my left hand. Eventually, if you want to get into hauling and double hauling, that's where we can learn this as well. It's a little down, up, down, up, down, up. And we don't end up here on our back cast again. We're retraining or training our hand to follow the reel. So dry casting, casting with no rod, casting with a piece of rod, all things that I highly, highly recommend to everybody that I work with. And it's the easiest and most effective way to retrain your muscle memory and get rid of your bad fly casting habits and start getting it out farther with a heck of a lot less effort.